Welcome, Jera, and we're so happy to have you. What is the mission of Jera Bean?
The mission of Jera Bean, I would say, is to really transform the way that people show up on social media. Social media is a key part of our lives. It's a key part of supporting our businesses or our personal goals, depending on how you're using social media. And so many people feel that it's a thorn in their side, kind of on the lower end of the spectrum. Other people just flat out hate it. There's a very negative connotation sometimes, and it can feel hard and sort of like it's sucking the soul out of you. And so what I want to do is transform the way that people show up so that they can feel really good about it, so that it can be a powerful and a positive tool for their business, for their goals, in terms of community, in terms of how it can help you get from point A to point B with whatever you're wanting to do with your life. And there's a lot of kind of lighthearted and fun connection to be made as well, in addition to sort of the bigger pieces with it. So that's my mission.
I love that. You've had a bit of a crazy journey to get where you are. Can you kind of bring us back?
So I grew up in New York City, born and raised New Yorker. I love New York. And then I went off to college at USC, the University of Southern California, undeclared, didn't know what I was going to major in. It could have been French, it could have been TV and cinema, it could have been creative writing at the time. And sort of on a whim, I chose fine art. And I decided to have an emphasis in graphic design. So that's what I did after college for a couple of years. I did some freelance work. I worked at a couple of startups. And it was not the best time of my life. It was a darker time. I ended up at a job that was really manipulative, and I had a bald patch on my head from losing hair due to stress. It was that time that I also realized I was struggling from social anxiety, and I'd go to therapy for that. And I just didn't really have friends. I didn't have any positive force in my life. And I bring this up because it was out of that darkness that this huge pivot happened. I discovered on Instagram a workout program called BBG, which stands for Bikini Body Guide. Not a great name. I think it's a different name now, but it was led by a woman named Kayla Itsines, who is a huge Australian personal trainer. And her popularity was gaining at the time, and I had followed her for about a year, really admiring the transformations of the women that she posted on her Instagram. And one day I woke up and I was like, well, maybe I could do this too. And so I downloaded the guide, I went to the gym, and that was April 4th, 2015. And I look at that day as the first day of the rest of my life. What happened was I created an Instagram account to hold myself accountable. I was Workout Bean at the time. And it was sort of this trifecta of working out and feeling good, of course, because, endorphins and all that. And I found community on Instagram because there were all these other women who were part of the BBG program. And I also unlocked this creativity that I think I hadn't felt in a while by writing captions. And, I wasn't taking beautiful photos, but taking photos in that way. And so it was this positive force that completely shifted my life. I fell in love with fitness. I got my NASM certification. I became a SoulCycle instructor. I became an Adidas ambassador. Like within a year, it was just night and day. Everything had changed so much. So then if we fast forward to SoulCycle days, I did that for close to 2 years. I left at the end of 2018 or mid 2018 to pursue kind of being an influencer, being a lifestyle creator full time. Did that, I had been doing that for years, but I did that full time for a year and a half till I was like, I should kind of explore some other opportunities. Like I just felt this anxiety that I needed to do more, needed to not have my eggs in all in one basket. And so that is when I developed my social media coaching business at the end of 2019. And if we fast forward to current day, 2022, I am still very much a content creator, but I'm also a social media coach and educator. I have a group program. I do big trainings for brands around the world. And those are kind of all my pivots and twists and turns.
Do you think that coaching, cycling and coaching fitness class was a huge transformational moment in your ability to coach people online?
Definitely. So I maybe have, I don't think I've conquered it entirely, an awful fear of public speaking. When I was younger, I liked to be in the spotlight. I wanted to be in all the plays. I liked when the people stopped me on the street to take photos of my pants because they were so baggy. But something happened, probably, being a teenager, that I didn't want to be in the spotlight anymore. And then social anxiety happened and fear of public speaking. And so when I became a SoulCycle instructor, that was a huge thing for me to, I don't want to say overcome, but learn to manage and learn to get better with. Because when you are in a SoulCycle room about to teach, 40, 50, 60 people, depending on the room size, and it's in New York where there is an incredibly high expectation that you are about to deliver an incredible experience. The pressure's freaking on. For a year, I was so glad the room was dark. My hand would shake, like turning the volume down to start class. And I think I was able to hide it. I don't think people knew that very well, but the nerves were it took forever for them to start subsiding. And I still get really nervous, like talking in front of people and having all that pressure. But I do think being a SoulCycle instructor had a tremendous positive effect in helping me kind of bridge that gap.
I think some people don't know. I love SoulCycle. I don't think they have any idea what SoulCycle is.
Yeah.
But like when you go into a SoulCycle room, like describe the energy that you have to perform is almost like being a rock star.
Oh my goodness, it really is. So it's this dark room. Depending on the studio, there's up to 65 bikes. So when a room is full, it is just electric with energy. It's dark, there's candles, there's loud music, and SoulCycle really does have a cult following because of the way that a class can make you feel. I mean, that's how I got hooked in. You go, and I still have like chills thinking about it. Like, it's just this transformative experience. Some people equate it to going to church. It's like their church. That's how powerful it can be. And so when you go from student to teacher and you know that people are expecting that kind of experience from you, both in terms of your energy, in terms of your playlist and the music that you select, the words that come out of your mouth, you're also riding the bike the entire time the class is going. So it's not like other fitness classes where you're just sort of up at the front of the room. So you're also having to do a full, like, burning 500 calories or more in 45 minutes with everyone and deliver the experience. So it's an immense amount of pressure. But when everything clicks, I mean, I think to this day, there is nothing that will ever equate to that feeling of leading a class when everything aligns. The energy in the room, the riders are all in sync. Your playlist is just incredible and everything just flows effortlessly out of you. Like, I miss that so much. It was such a special energy that I don't think will exist any other place in my life.
This is a skill that could come in handy when making new friends. Well, folks, I'm talking about armpit farting. Yes, armpit farting.
So you struggled a lot with showing up online and kind of being in the spotlight. How did you end up going from that to being really comfortable to letting your freak flag fly?
Well, I think having social anxiety, Instagram was sort of the perfect way for me to connect and be social without having to like be social at the time. So it was this beautiful kind of stepping stone for me coming from a place where I was struggling with social anxiety, didn't really have a lot of friends in real life, and then feeling like I had this connection to people instantly, and I had community that I was really lacking otherwise. So it was actually a really easy transition for me back in 2015 to start creating content, to start connecting, because it was sort of a crutch at the time, but it was something I still really needed and wanted. In those early days, I found the more that I shared about myself in captions, because stories didn't exist yet in 2015, and the more I just kind of let people into my experiences and my voice, I saw the connections happening in real time. And so I think early on I learned that, as I love to say, letting your freak flag fly, even though it can feel like this scary thing because you're letting people into you, your personality, you're letting your true self be seen, that is the secret sauce in building connection, in creating community.
Here's a tutorial. Your Instagram, 3 ways.
Yeah. I think in general, like when I'm following you as Jera Bean, there's a really nice balance between this is your mission, is to tell people how to show up online, and as well sharing your private life, but it doesn't feel too exploitative. How do you find that balance?
It's hard. It's hard because as a content creator, which is how I got started. I mean, I was and still am content creator, influencer, and so finding and drawing boundaries between your personal life and social media, it can be very blurred because a lot of our following and sort of brands are built on sharing our entire life. And that's one of the struggles, I think, of being an influencer, being a content creator, is that everything is content, everything's Instagrammable. You could potentially share everything, and figuring out where you draw that line, it's not clear cut. I think you have to start drawing those boundaries. You have to start protecting your energy and what you're putting out into the world. Some questions to ask yourself when it comes to sharing your personal life, if you're unsure, is, am I sharing this from a place of wanting to connect with other people, wanting to build relationships, wanting to provide value? Am I sharing something to help someone else, to let them know that they're not alone in going through this, if it's something more heavy and deep in that? Or if you really check in with yourself, am I sharing this because, oh yeah, I want to get some likes, I want to get some views, or I want to get engagement or followers? And if you're heading more in that second direction, I think you are heading more in that I'm exploiting myself, exploiting my personal life, etc. But it's tough because I have found that sometimes when I have shared the more vulnerable things, the things that have been more challenging to share, or even I've questioned sharing, that those are the times that I feel my community the strongest. Like my dog just passed away in April, and I actually held out for about 2 weeks of not posting and sharing about that. I chose to keep that information to myself and kind of protect my energy for about 2 weeks or so. And I've never felt so much resistance to sharing a post. But as soon as I did, it was very healing in a sense. I had hundreds, thousands of people commenting, messaging me, and it was such a good lesson in that sometimes the things that feel the most vulnerable to share, that feel the most challenging to share, can actually be the catalyst to connection.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. It really, I think, describes your journey, because back in the day when you were doing Bikini Body Guide, which I totally have somewhere in my inbox and have done it, that community was all about transformation and self-discovery, and so there's still a big thread in your life that is about transformation and discovery. So sharing that. Something that people don't talk about as much is as much light that there comes with, what is the darkness? And so, can you tell us a story about trolls?
Oh man, I've had a lot of trolls and quite a range of trolls. Like I think of TikTok and I get all these, one-off comments of, oh, so cringy, or just kind of, it almost seems like they could just say that to anyone and that doesn't make it hurt less, but it's more of these surface level insults or rude messages and comments. But deeper than that, I've gotten some pretty intense things, whether it be comments or I would say the most hurtful and the most impactful in the world of trolls and not so nice messages have been in the sense of DMs. People just, people get upset and mad for so many reasons. Sometimes I'm like, why are you getting mad at me for this? It just, sometimes I wouldn't imagine in a million years that you would get mad at me or upset for that. People who send me long messages telling me why they're unfollowing me, and they have every right to unfollow. So I'm not upset about the unfollow, but it's kind of the lengthy novel of telling me every single detail why, which I always find very interesting. But the flip side of this that I have come to sort of gather and realize over the last year is that sometimes people say really hurtful things and take things out on you, and it really ends up being so much more about them. And it's easy to say that and just go, oh yeah, it's not about me, it's about them. But I bring this up specifically because I have proof of 3 specific times that people wrote really mean or condescending, rude DMs to me. And either a month or one time, it was a full year later, they followed up and apologized. Like a lengthy apology explaining why they said what they said, why they reacted, why they took it out on me. And each time it really was about them and not about me. And so those apologies have given me perspective that when people lash out, sometimes it's something that you said or did that triggered them and they're actually dealing with something much deeper. It's not the case every single time, but I do try and remember that when I receive things that are not so nice. The other thing that really hurt me, not necessarily a troll, but I actually once came across a blog post that featured me. And it wasn't super hateful, but like I said, I have thin skin. It was more of a criticism that I still remember to this day. Obviously it had an impact on me. And I can't remember what the overarching theme was, but they identified me as someone who had pivoted from my original theme, from my original niche of fitness specifically. And that was a time that I was transitioning more into lifestyle Jera. And it was a time where I was really lost in terms of being a content creator. I didn't really know what the next step was. I didn't know what I was doing. And I'm sure my content reflected that a little bit because, like I said, who I am in real life is what you see on social media. It's not an act, it's not a performance. And so feeling lost during that time probably also reflected to my content a bit as I was discovering what the next step was. And they were very critical of that. And I also read comments under the blog post saying, oh yeah, I used to follow her and then she changed, and so I unfollowed, and then here's a list of people who actually stayed true to themselves. And I thought that was so interesting because I thought to myself, they're saying that by me changing, I haven't stayed true to myself. Whereas I felt that if I did not change and I stayed in the box of fitness that I'd put myself in, that would be the most untrue thing to myself ever because I didn't want to do that anymore. Yeah. And so I have found that to be a common theme, that people expect you to stay in the box of how they originally found you. And if you're to pivot away from that, they can get really upset and not necessarily support that. On the flip side, there are tons of people who are the opposite who have been so wonderful about it. But just to go back to that blog post, it is so interesting that the criticism was, oh my gosh, you've changed. We don't like that. We don't support that. that's not you staying true to yourself. Whereas I felt the complete opposite, that by shifting and pivoting, I was being true to myself. So that stung a little bit.
How do you not make that inhibiting to your career when you get such, negative experiences and such criticism?
I'm reminded over and over by myself and my world, and also seeing other people go through it, that not everyone's going to like you, and not everyone's going to agree with what you do and what you say and how you pivot and your content and when I say it's a general your mission, your goal in life can't be for like everyone to like you and agree with you. I always tell my students, and I tell them this because I also tell it to myself, that in order to support your business, in order to reach your personal goals, having everyone like you, that's not a prerequisite to making your business happen or your personal brand or your goals. And so as you're pursuing those things, of course, you're going to come across the people who disagree, the people who don't support, and that's just unfortunately part of the journey and part of the process.
Do you ever have, someone who's using your content without your consent, or like the biggest disaster of a photo shoot or content creation for a brand?
Oh, well, I've worked with brands since about 2015, 2016, and so I have a lot of experience, and 9 times out of 10, it's so great. And I have management who's so lovely, and they're the middlemen to really help me focus more on the creative. So most of the time, it's either a really lovely experience or it's at least a good experience. That being said, there have been a few situations that have not been the best. And like one comes to mind where I try and be really good about reading the creative brief. I know exactly what the brand wants. I look at their inspiration, I submit concepts, etc. And so in this particular example, I had done all of those things. I think I even sent an inspiration photo of, I really like what this creator did for a completely other project. I would like to do something similar. And they approved it, all this. I go out and shoot it. I'm on a paddle board. So like, it wasn't, oh yeah, let me take a photo in front of this white wall. It was like, blow up the paddle board, get out on the water, like bring the product, all of this. And took the photo, and I won't get into like the whole boring details, but essentially they did not approve it and wanted a reshoot and all of this. Now, it sounds so small in the scheme of things, but when you go through the lengths to do your part, when you go through the lengths to meet the brand, I need to come here and the brand needs to meet me here. So I felt like I'd done my part, and then for them to completely like pull the rug out from under me with all other things going on within the project that were very frustrating as well. Like that kind of thing is really frustrating.
This is the story of a gal who once struggled so badly with social anxiety that she feared and avoided most social situations. A story of a gal who had such a terrible fear of public speaking.
But we'd love to know about Jera, the brand. Can you tell us about your brand and what its mission is?
The Jera Bean brand, well, I like to think of it as there's 3 prongs essentially to it. There's Jera, the content creator, as we've talked about. That's Jera, still working with brands and doing partnerships and creating content. And then there's more of social media coach and educator Jera. And so within that, I do a lot of teaching. Big companies will hire me to come in and teach their company, teach their creators, their ambassadors about social media, whether it's Instagram or TikTok. So I do these really big trainings. And then there's also one-on-one coaching as well. And across those 3 prongs of the Jera Bean brand, the mission really is to transform how people show up on social media, to use it as a powerful and positive tool for their business.
What is the coolest brand you've worked with?
Okay, I have to say Estee Lauder because one, they're incredible and I love them and they're such awesome people to work with and I feel very connected to them and I've gotten to know their team and their creators, so there's that personal connection now. And they were also the ones who opened up the door to a lot of other brands. For example, they opened up the door to working with MAC Cosmetics, who I also love.
So what do you love about, teaching Estee Lauder or teaching MAC Cosmetics? And what do you physically do?
With Estee Lauder, I've had them have like 5 translators on the call in Mandarin, French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, because their creators are all around the world. So it's incredible to me that I'm giving this big presentation and then it's being translated into all these languages and it blows my mind. But what I love about it, well, one, a lot of times I teach TikTok. And when it comes to social media platforms, the one I get the most excited about talking about is definitely TikTok. I love short form video content. I love the culture of TikTok. Just being a creator on TikTok, not even teaching it, I love that aspect. So I think TikTok in general lights me up, and that is usually what I'm hired the most to teach for companies like Estee Lauder and MAC. I think what I love the most is when I'm able to have a couple of sessions. So for example, with Estee Lauder, at the beginning of this year, I did 5 90-minute long sessions, which is, if I'm doing my math correctly, 7 hours of TikTok content. But what I loved about that was that it wasn't just, oh, I come in and teach and then I'm gone. I came in and taught, gave them homework to implement. They were able to, in a Google Drive, post their videos, able to review it, give them feedback. And so I saw over the course of 5 sessions how these creators grew and took feedback and changed and sort of updated their style and approach. And there's a couple of them that I've followed since those sessions, and just seeing them grow their following and get better at their content. It's very, it just feels good to see that my work has an actual impact in terms of how they're showing up on social media. And so I think that's very rewarding and fulfilling for me.
So it's pretty incredible what you've done. We sat down with you, I think this was the beginning of 2020, and you told us TikTok's gonna be the next big thing. And you hadn't created a platform. You said, oh, I know a girl who's doing it and her content's amazing. I've been following along the journey. All of a sudden, 6 months later, I click on Jera and you have 1 million followers. So tell us how you did it.
Oh gosh, where to even begin? I think with TikTok, my approach has been to embrace being a beginner. At least that was my approach at the beginning. I actually love scrolling back to the beginning of my TikTok account and looking at my videos, because I'm like, what the hell was I doing? But I don't say that in a critical way. I'm kind of like, whoa, like I was just experimenting. I really didn't understand the platform. I didn't understand the culture, and that's such a huge part, the culture of TikTok and short form video content. It was so new to me that I was really throwing spaghetti at a wall and nothing was sticking at first. But it was my willingness to continue to show up despite not understanding the platform, despite not understanding how to create short form video content, and purely just figuring it out as I went along. I think with social media, so oftentimes we feel that something has to be perfect in order for it to be posted, or we have to be experts at creating content or understanding 100% what our message is, and then we wait and we wait and we wait, and then we end up not posting anything, or we end up not really showing up consistently. And I think the trick is to show up before you're ready, to figure it out as you go, and to take messy action, and that will help you figure out the platform. That can help you define your voice and find the confidence in your voice. And I think that was sort of the key ingredient for me with growing on TikTok and getting to 1 million followers.
And what do you think, if you were to give some advice about the 3 things someone can do to increase their social media presence, what would that be?
It's hard to just narrow it down to 3 things, but I'm just gonna go with my gut and what comes to my mind. So first is owning your secret sauce, as I like to call it. And your secret sauce to me is your authenticity. And everyone has secret sauce because everyone is wonderfully unique in who they are as individuals. But it's about bringing that to social media, because anyone can be the tips person, the advice person, anyone can make a tutorial, but no one's gonna do it in the way that you do. No one's gonna deliver it with the energy that you do or have the personal anecdotes to support it in the way that you do. So you have to bring secret sauce to social media in order to stand out from the noise. Number two would be to understand who it is that you're trying to reach. Because if you're trying to create content for everyone, if you don't know who your ideal client, if you're a business, or your ideal follower is and what they're struggling with or what they want to learn or what they need to feel or how you can benefit their life, then you're sort of creating content into the social media abyss and it's not going to stick, it's not going to land. So knowing who it is that you're trying to reach and connect with. And then number three would have to be this concept of messy action. And that to me means showing up before you feel totally ready, showing up despite your post or your caption or whatever it is, not being perfect, because we don't even need perfect. We don't even need to strive for that. We can just throw it out the window and learning as you go. There's this, I think there's a myth that you have to have everything figured out, but you're actually going to figure out the more that you show up on stories, the more that you show up on TikTok. So to summarize that, the three things would be owning your secret sauce, your authenticity, your uniqueness, knowing who it is that you're trying to connect with, and also taking messy action and just showing up before you're ready.
Rephrase it of like, where do you think the future of social media is going?
I think what we've been used to with social media from about 2015 to 2020 is this concept of the highlight reel of Instagram, where we're creating these perfectly curated photos and perfectly curated feeds and showing the highlights of our life instead of the more real, the more messy, the more in between. I think one of the reasons why TikTok has been so successful is that it's throwing this idea of curation and the highlight reel out the window, and it's really more about the human. It's more about the authenticity. It's more about the everyday life and who we are as people versus trying to put on a performance and be someone else in this grid, in these squares that we post on Instagram. And so I think that the curation that we've grown so accustomed to is becoming much more outdated, and it's the real kind of raw and grittiness of TikTok it's the realness and the rawness of TikTok that has been such a catalyst to its success. So I really see social media continuing to go in that direction where we show more of the behind the scenes, we show more of the process, we show more of the human versus this curated image of what we think other people want to see and consume.